Always.
It is an interesting topic because, I mean, as soon as it passed, I had to run over to Brussels or for emergency meetings in London. I mean, the press here doesn't realize it has set off kind of like a panic internationally. You have the German industry yelling and saying, hey, we can't compete with Americans at this stage. You have the same thing going on in Britain, Asia. I met with a major person very high up from China, and they had to rush back for a meeting. I mean, it's, I've been telling these people this is coming. And they were like, oh, well, we'll see. And then it happens like, oh, my God, it went through. So but yes, it is going to make America great again. And that people don't realize, but American companies and citizens are taxed on worldwide income. The only other country that does that is Japan. So it's just crazy. And we can't, I testified before Congress back in 96, before the House Ways and Means Committee, when we were talking about tax reform back then. And I explained, look, the corporate tax rate is crazy. It's got to be brought down to 15%. You got to match what at least Hong Kong does. And back then it was like, well, how come no American got any contracts to build all these construction in China? I said, because they can't compete. A German company goes in there and does it, and it's not taxed back in Germany. And if a German citizen goes over there to work to make the project, they don't pay any income tax. I said, you guys, you want income tax on every quarter somebody finds in a parking lot, you're not competitive. And of course, the American press is constantly bashing, the class warfare stuff. I mean, they love Marx. And then you have Gary Cohen from, at Goldman Sachs, who basically only understands big companies anyhow. And so they bash him, big companies are going to take the money back from offshore and they're going to do buybacks, and so you're wrong. It's not going to create jobs. He's honestly an idiot. First of all, the major players who create jobs is really the small business. All right. It is fantastic for them. And the big business, fine. Yes. Some of the big corps still bring back the money and they'll do buybacks. Now, who owns the stock? Pension funds. So what will they do? They're only going to have to reinvest it in other companies. It's like, so you don't want them to bring the money back because you're going to get a windfall tax. So it's best they leave it offshore and we don't get anything, right? That's your argument? Yeah. But this is what appears at CNN and everything else. It's like, well, it's better to leave it over there when we don't get anything at all. Okay.
Yeah. Well, but, like companies like GE, we know, like in my lifetime, I probably paid more federal income tax than they have, and you certainly have. Doesn't really matter for them. But a company like AT&T that has a 34%, 35% effective tax rate, they're getting back $3 to $3.5 billion in what they pay. All of these heavy capital-intensive businesses, like Home Depot, I was shocked to find out they pay over a 40% effective tax rate. When you start looking at the companies that are above the fold that pay substantially over 21% in federal income tax, the amount is staggering.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they only select the ones that, that support their own particular argument. I mean, and the interesting thing is that, how it doesn't apply to like financial services, advising stuff, lawyers and things of that nature. But it's changing the game. And I can tell you for the past 30 years, what has really been bantered around in Washington is eliminating the tax credit for what you pay as state and income tax. The main reason for this is that you have many states that are complaining that it's just a welfare system. So, for example, Alabama charges 5%. And they go, well, okay, we're only really getting that 5% because that's all we charge. California charges 13.5%. So more federal money is really going back to California than it's coming to Alabama. So to them, they're looking at it as a welfare tax for the state. So once you eliminate that deduction, it will force people now to start paying attention to their local politics. I mean, I lived in New Jersey when they were putting in the income tax, and the sales job was, it's not going to cost you anything. You get everything back from the federal government, and we'll get to keep money. That was the argument. It was playing a game, and so you have some states that are just, they're being subsidized by the federal government.
Of course. So looking at it, it's definitely going to have benefits. And my feeling is the way that Trump works, this is only the beginning. He's going to go back. I liken this thing, getting legislation passed in D.C. is like taking all of your extended family out for dinner, and there's always some greedy in-laws that want to go get lobster, but instead you take them out to the $9.95 buffet, or if it was Vegas, this would be the circus buffet for the first tax cut. But the next one is going to be at the Bellagio, and I think that's the one that's really going to put the country over the top.
Yeah, well, it's also the Democrats have, they just really are so in bed with this class warfare stuff that they don't know anything else to argue. And it's better to punish the country rather than see it grow. And so why did the tax deduction, eliminated for the states? Because all the high tax states, California, New York, they're all the Democratic states.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're going to pay through the nose for their expensive government. Now they're not going to have the rest of the country there to subsidize them. So they're either going to have to change, or the outflow, the outward migration from these states is going to step up many times. Look, to some extent, you can shelter it with creating LLCs, things like that. But in other ways, you're not going to be able to forestall the effects of getting rid of the state and local tax deduction. It's going to be devastating. I mean, look, people who are making $500,000 a year in New York and literally living paycheck to paycheck. They got to pay another $30,000 to $50,000 in income taxes as a result of this. And the results just for real estate there, for all sorts of things, it's just going to be devastating for New York, California. A state like Minnesota gets close to 10% on their top earners. Connecticut, Massachusetts, even those states actually have lower income taxes, but any state with high real estate taxes and mid to high income taxes are going to take this on the chin.
Oh yeah, I mean it's you can see it already. I mean, I have friends in Texas saying that people from California in one town, he says they virtually bought every house that was on the market except for maybe two. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing the same thing over here in Florida. It's I mean, from that perspective, I'm not so crazy about it because all of a sudden traffic has gotten a lot more noticeably heavy. But I mean, there are only 7 states that don't have income tax. So, you're going to see people moving a lot. And I have, some old friends from New Jersey, and now they're calling me on the phone. Gee, any suggestions? It looks like I think we want to move the company to Florida. I said, well, I told you. But New Jersey lost a big hedge fund manager. He moved to Florida, and they were complaining that it was going to cost them $200 million in taxes that he wasn't going to be paying.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is. You take California; they want to put on the proposal that they've been marketing around Washington is to seize everybody's 401ks because CalPERS has lost money managing the pension funds for for the state employees. So what they want to do is usurp everybody's pension funds in California, give it to CalPERS, and then increase the pool so they don't have to cut back on the state employee pensions. I mean, it's always a scheme.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, fine. They couldn't manage that, so now you want to give everybody, and they can steal from that to pay for the state employees. People don't get it. I mean, there is never a reform. All right. This tax reform from Trump is probably the first major structural change that you've seen since Ronald Reagan, and the one before that was JFK. At the state and local level, they just don't reform.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? We'll raise taxes, and I mean, as you know, I've dealt with governments around the world, and it's been, politicians are all the same. It doesn't matter what nationality, what country we're talking about. It's like the view has been, there's enough stupid people out there that whenever we need money, we just raise the rent. That's it. So why reform? Why actually do anything correctly? It's just mind-boggling. Really is mind-boggling. But they're just not interested in. You would never hire these people to run a private company. Never.
I wouldn't hire them to run a hot dog stand.
I know. I mean, it's just basically they're totally incompetent.
So talking about Trump, I think there's a lot more of this type of thing ahead, and I think that most of his opposition and most of the country is totally unaware of what's happening here. They're really clueless about where this is all heading, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, now what you're going to see is you're going to see the Democrats come out and start pushing for impeachment because they're not going to back off their class warfare, and all they can do is start yelling about, all this, that, and class warfare and everything else. But for as far as the elections in 2018, the big states that are going to get hit the hardest are the ones with the Democrats.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
So they have no choice now, but I think you're going to see even the leadership start to change its tune and try and come up with anything to basically justify some sort of impeachment. And of course they can't really impeachment, but I mean, I put out a report on impeachment, and there is no real rule of law. They just do whatever they want to do. But they will use that as a distraction as much as they possibly can.
Yeah, I think you're correct there.
That's probably what we're going to see into 2018.
Yeah. Well,
they need something to argue.
Yeah, they got nothing, though. They've got nothing. So as far as the country goes, you think this is really going to be an economic shot in the arm, really going to make a difference. So heading into 2018, the economy, let's say we're getting 4% growth, which would be considered pretty high, pretty impressive. They've got nothing. They're going to get swept.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand that it's the whole Marxist socialist agenda is destroying Europe. Yes, people, we had it here, like with the gold bugs. Oh, they're basically doing this stimulation, and the Fed's creating $4 trillion. All this is going to be hyperinflation. Nothing happens. Mm-hmm. All right, because they don't understand the full picture. Yes, the ECB has been doing that over there for almost 10 years. Nothing's happened. Why? Because at the same time, on the opposite side of the aisle, you have Congress or the Parliament over there saying, "Oh, gee, we have more. We need more money." And so all they've been doing is raising taxes and enforcing taxes. So the number one thing over there that you find, and you can Google it, people have been buying safes. They've been hoarding cash like crazy. 1,000 Swiss franc bills are in high demand, and this is what's going on. So if I give you $100 and then I say, well, now you got to give me $85 back in tax, so what did I actually give you? It's the net you got to look at. It's did $4 trillion go into the country and actually go to the individual people? No, it didn't. It went to the banks. What did the banks do? They said, gee, well, we don't really want to lend because the economy's not that good, so create excess reserves so we can give it right back to you. Oh, okay, fine. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So you have $3 trillion in excess reserves? Okay, where's the stimulation here?
It's a shell game. It's really a shell game.
It is. It's, you have to look at this from a net effect basis. And if you want to create inflation, etc., what creates it? It's one, confidence by the people that the future is going to be better. And as long as that is, and they'll spend. Two, is their real estate. If their real estate appreciates in value, all the studies show they will spend more money.
Yeah.
Even if they don't, they're not getting home loans or on it or something like that, but they will spend their money more freely because they feel that is their savings. Mm-hmm. So you've had London put in a stamp duty tax. Oh, we got to stop the boom in real estate. You get the same thing going on in Canada. Australia, they even made it a criminal act for a foreigner to buy something. New Zealand, the same thing. All right. People don't realize when you do this to the real estate market, the entire market goes down. You undermine the confidence, and people are going to contract in their spending. Simple as that.
Of course.
So don't expect any kind of an economic boom outside the United States.
Mm-hmm. So
it's just not going to happen.
So since people are going to
That's what the panic's about.
So people are going to be
outside the country.
Right. I gotcha. So people are going to be more optimistic because of this in the U.S., presumably. So banks are going to start lending again, and inflation probably going to pick up?
Yeah, it should begin to pick up to some degree because you're also going to see a lot more money coming here. Not just the companies are going to repatriate their cash. And even if they do buybacks, that's fine. Okay.
Sure.
Go ahead, buy back. The stock market will go up because you're creating a shortage.
Right.
In stock. Mm-hmm. All right. That was one of the things that made 1929 go up. One of the final stocks to be put, to go public in 1929 at the top was Mausoleum Incorporated. If anybody's ever flown into JFK and you drive along the Belt Parkway, you see all these mausoleums. That was it. Now, when you can take a graveyard and make that a public entity, it shows you people were just buying anything.
Yeah.
There was a shortage of stock. That was the real issue. And I pointed out that this bull market has been basically the most hated bull market in history.
Absolutely.
Last April was 97 months, which was the entire length of the bull market of the 1920s. All right. Mm-hmm. We reached 97 months. The vast majority of people were still bearish.
Yeah.
I mean, I get requests for interviews from some people I haven't heard of before, and I said, "Why are you asking me to be in, for an interview?" And they said, "Well, we're just trying to find somebody who's been bullish on the stock market. Everybody that comes on our show is bearish."
Yeah, well, they always say stocks climb on a wall of worry. Like you say, the most hated bull market in history without question. And the fact that everybody believes this generally means it ain't going to happen. And then I do agree that there's going to be a huge outflow, and I think we're seeing it already, of capital from Europe. You got, Jewish people fleeing all the major cities in Europe, and where are they going to come and where are they going to put their money? They don't have a lot of choices. I guess they could buy Bitcoin with it, right? Yeah, no, I mean,
Bitcoin's another whole problem, but, it's that's really like a .com bubble. yes, eventually we're going to electronic currency. All right. But you can't really spend it right now. So you're getting way, way ahead of the game. And people have to realize it takes a long time necessary for technology to really filter in. And so, take the fax machine. It was patented back in the 1850s. So it took like 100 years before it started even, become a twinkle in somebody's eye. I don't think it's going to take 100 years for the currency side, but the governments definitely want to move towards electronic currency, but they will control it. And unfortunately, the move has been largely because of taxation. And they feel as if everybody paid taxes on absolutely everything that they have, then they wouldn't have a problem. But of course, they would spend 10 times more anyhow. It doesn't matter.
That's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, it's the same thing. These people, Trump's thing is going to add $1 trillion to the deficit. Who cares? Really? Who cares? Obama, the first year he was in was $1.5 trillion, and he went into $1 trillion deficit for every year for 4 years, 400 times more than the Trump tax cut. Nobody said anything.
Yes. For sure. For sure. So
it's a lot of it's just, pomp and circumstance, and they just have to come up with some sort of arguments.
Hey, and I know you got to go. You're rushed. Got to catch a plane. Just quickly, the dollar, where's it heading? Gold. Any movement there?
Not just yet, but we're preparing. 2018 should be the much higher volatility. I can tell you the meetings I went to in Europe, what they're scared to death about is that Merkel, is gone. Mm-hmm. And you ask the average American who's the head of Europe, you show them pictures, they're going to say Merkel, not Juncker. So, yeah. She is the image of Europe. And what they're afraid of, she goes, what happens to the euro? And now you have in Italy, you have the politics. Barcelona, basically, he's leading right now. He wanted to take Italy back out before, and that's where the EU conspired to get him kicked out of office last time. You have Catalonia. Europe is a real mess, and you have Schultz in Germany saying, "Oh, we should make by force now, just make this the United States of Europe." The culture's just not there. It's just not there.
Yeah.
The primary thing is language. And, you ask an American, what are you? They say, I'm half German, half Irish, or whatever. You don't see that in Europe. Mm-hmm. There's always exceptions, but Germans marry Germans, Italians marry Italians, and that's the way it is. You're not going to see somebody from Scotland going down to Milan to meet a girl to marry. It doesn't, it's very, very rare.
Yeah, so it's insular.
But once everybody spoke the same language here, that was it.
Yeah. So as far as gold goes, I think I read one of your publications recently. You seem to have turned somewhat bullish on it.
We're running out of time. So there's still the risk that gold can go down and just crack the 1,000 area and then sling back up the opposite way. But that is going to be what is required for that is really a crack in the euro, et cetera. So then you'll have, I know all these people that have been bullish on gold and keep talking about the dollar is going to crash and whatever. That is the last thing that's going to happen. All right. Mm-hmm. Anytime you get these major crashes, even the Great Depression, all right, where did it start? It started in Austria. Then it goes to Germany. Then it hits, then eventually came here. All right, but yeah. They start from the peripheral out, and then it comes into the core. And if it doesn't collapse from the core and move outward, it's just the way it is. So, and if you look around, you see we have problems in Japan. We have China basically doing everything it can to stop any capital from getting out. You have Europe in absolute dismay, and Britain, they're trying to you have the Remain crew in there going after May, and they're demanding another referendum. So, I mean, things just are not... the United States is the only place to go. It's holding up the entire world right now. So how is the dollar going to...
Yeah. If the dollar goes, then we all got big problems. And Trump, hey, we talked extensively about Trump before the election. You said he was going to win, and I totally embraced that, assuming that the election didn't get fixed. And look where we are now. He became president. You know, we talked years ago, you said Dow 32,000. The Dow was 16,000 when we first started talking. Now it's going to break 25,000 any day. Once it hits 25,000, is there anything really that's going to hold it back? I mean, 25 to me just seems like a magical number.
Yeah, we have some resistance at 28. After that, it's pretty much clear sailing up to about 36.
36. So it's all happening a little slower than you said that it would. But like you said, of all the people who've been bullish on the market, really, you've been bullish since I know you 6 years, probably long before that. I mean, you've really been right on the money here. Everyone else keeps saying it's overpriced, it's a bubble, and you got to say, oh, it's a bubble. They just keep
looking at this from a domestic standpoint, and they need to really, poke their head up and look outside the country once in a while.
Yeah. There's a world out there.
The whole Trump, and the whole Trump victory. Our computer is very correct on that. And why? People are fed up with government. All right. And it's everywhere. You see it in Catalonia. You see it in Britain. You see, Italy. I mean, it's getting to the point where we've had politicians and all they do is lie. Vote for me, I'll do this, and whatever, and they never do it. And when I get in private meetings about Trump, it's like he really does what he said he was going to do. I said, I told you, he's not one of you guys.
Hey, I knew him. I happened to have met him a long time ago. When I was in a past life, when I was a lawyer, and I went to Trump Tower, I was basically prepared not to like him because of all the press and everything else. He's bombastic, showy, gauche, whatever you want to say. By the time I walked out of his office 2 hours later, we were like best friends. He was hysterical. I don't think people really understand his humor and his wit. It was one of the most memorable occasions, of very few from my legal career. Not that I wasn't successful. It just wasn't something that I really had fun doing. But he was the exception. I mean, we hung out, he was very irreverent, and he even shook my hand, even though he was germophobic. I mean, people totally didn't get it, and they didn't get about those Midwestern states. They were clueless, and they're clueless today, Martin. The idea of impeaching him.
Oh, yeah.
This is idiot. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's a sure way to turn your party into a fringe party that has no real backbone or basis to it, no beliefs. You only exist to get rid of your opposition. What do you stand for?
Yeah, they don't stand for anything. And this was the problem when Trump was elected, and I went down to Washington, and the elite Republicans were against them, and because they like it, remain it, let's keep everything as is. We're happy.
Yeah.
I mean, you take somebody like John McCain. Honestly, he would have voted for Hillary.
Probably did. Did.
Yeah, probably did. I mean, it's just like, well, we know what we have. She understands the game, and she's not going to upset anything. And that's what they want.
Yeah.
You wouldn't change? Oh, my God. Actually change things? No, it works fine for us.
Such a great point. Hey, well,
nobody else but for them.